So, Oprah Winfrey, my number one choice of someone that I look up to in life and in business. And actually for Oprah, it's actually both. For both. No, not only in personal, but in business. You know, Oprah has built such an amazing empire in business. Multi-billionaire, Forbes list. She's been on the Forbes list of the top billionaires in the world for many years. And you know, one of the things I always wondered when her show was ending, because by the way, as a young guy coming up, I remember my mom used to have this television. It was like these box TVs, right? And she used to have it in her office, and it was like, I remember the show was like, Oprah's on, Oprah's on, right? It had this little like theme song, and or at least that was my theme song for it, and I think it was, I don't know what time of the day it was, but it was always in the afternoon, and I'd always look forward to watching Oprah. So I don't know if that's a combination of just growing up as a kid and emotional ties to it. It probably was at that point, but I think what I loved most about Oprah growing up was her confidence and her interview style. Like, she was just like an amazing, confident woman, and at that time in my life, I was very shy. I mean, I would stay home most of the time. Going out and hanging out with people was not my thing. Even my best friend would come to my house every day because I didn't really want to go to his house in the beginning because I was just so nervous. Well, he also had a really big dog, so so he would come to my house almost every day because I didn't really want to go out. So, you know, what I saw in Oprah was this confidence that she could literally talk to anyone. She was really the first interview host I've ever saw in my life. Like, it was the only person that I really got introduced to that was interviewing people like that, and it was so impressive. As years went on, I started like looking into her life, reading her biography, and realized who she was and where she came from. And from a business perspective and personal life, you know, perspective, that just makes it so much more powerful because she came from nothing, self-made, right? Or as I like to say, team-made. Anyone who, I can guarantee you this, Oprah, I know for a fact, because all the people that I've talked to that have very massive wealth, they never say they did it alone. They may say they were not born rich, right? But they always say that they were team-made. They always have a team, and that's so true. This whole idea of self-made is like, it's like, I can understand you're coming from nothing to something, but being self-made, no. It always takes a team of good people around you to make the dream work. It takes the teamwork to make the dream work. And the reality is, I've heard on numerous interviews with Oprah that she's thanked her staff and her team. I remember her last episode of her show, the Oprah Winfrey Show. Gosh, that was not easy. Even I was getting choked up because I was like, man, this is an icon who's now, you know, going to go away. And I thought she was going to go away forever. I didn't realize that it was just a closed book and she had another book lined up. And I'm so grateful that she's still impacting people's lives than ever before. And one of the most important things, which I'll share a little bit later, but Oprah actually opened a door for one of my dear friend and mentors. And I'll share that with you in just a little bit as I go through this, and that's another reason why I really appreciate her even more, because when other people were shutting doors for my mentor, like, she opened it, and that is just a very phenomenal thing. So I give a lot of credit to Oprah, and I'm so glad, I'm so amazed I'm alive during this time in history. Like, it's so cool to say I've been alive while Oprah was alive. You know, that's just, I think that's really cool. There are some people in life that, I mean, we can look back in history and say, wow, you know, it wasn't around when that person was alive, but I think Oprah has just made such huge strides in the world, you know, globally. And that's really cool. I also appreciate how she has a heart for Africa, and she gives back in that area. Again, you know, years ago, I don't know if you guys knew this about me, but years ago I used to love, I really used to look up to Angelina Jolie. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that actress. but I love the fact that she was doing her business, which was she's being an actress, and she would give back. Like, she was always giving back, and she's still an ambassador in the UN, and she's always like giving back. I'm sorry, an ambassador to the UN or UNICEF? No, to the UN, sorry. I was getting confused there. So I always loved that part about her, because it showed that she was, you know, not just doing her business in her life and making money, she was actually giving back. And that's another thing I really like about Oprah as well, because she has found ways of making that happen in her life. And that's really cool. Something I admire very much. All right, so the next one is, let's see if I can do this without any, let's see if I can do this just by clicking through. How do I go to the next slide? Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna do it this way. I gotta figure out how to do this. Next is Freddie Mercury. You guys know Freddie Mercury? Do you know who he is? Does anybody ring a bell? I know some people don't, and that's okay. He's no longer with us. He's no longer in the world. But if you know who Freddie is, maybe you can post a famous quote of Freddie's in the comments, or if you know who he is, throw it down. Actually, that moment right there, just with the hand fist up in the sky like that, up in the air, it reminds me of a few things from his music. Oh, by the way, Freddie Mercury is the lead singer of Queen. So if you're not familiar with Queen, they're an 80s rock and roll band? 70s rock and roll band. And they were huge. They're massive. I mean, they traveled the world and impacted so many lives with their music. Beyond that, so I don't really look at Freddie Mercury from a business perspective, because that's like more of a team unit and stuff in music. So I don't really look at Freddie Mercury. I look at more from a life perspective. And if I recall correctly, that, you know, Freddie Mercury and his family were immigrants, and they immigrated to the United States, and I'm sorry, not the United States, the UK. I was actually, I'll tell you why I was thinking of this, because I was watching another movie about music, and there was immigrants in it who immigrated to the United States, but they were also a music band. Sorry, they immigrated to the UK, and I forgot, it was like maybe just outside of London. I just exactly don't remember the exact details of the location, but just outside of London. And one of the things I really look up to Freddie about was that even though he was laughed at personally, he had some, you know, he had overlapping jaw, I think that's what they call it. So physically, I know he was, you know, made fun of as a younger guy, or even as a child, but also his language, he didn't speak the language in the UK, so he had to learn English. And also, just coming as an immigrant into another place is not so easy. If you don't, it takes time to blend in. And I've even felt blend in or stand out. But I felt this numerous times, actually. Even though I'm Portuguese, being here in Portugal, sometimes they can quickly tell if you're like a tourist or from out of the area. So that's pretty interesting. But, you know, speaking more Portuguese and getting more fluent in the language is something to do. But also, when I moved to Uganda, that was an entirely different language. Even though they do speak English there, it's a second language, but Luganda being the primary language. So it was kind of a little easier for me to, you know, migrate and learn Luganda while I was there. However, there's still cultural differences that you have to understand. So I know what it's like to be in different cultures and having to adapt in that culture, because not only in Uganda do I live there, but I also do business there, so you have to know the business side of it. Anyway, so with Freddie, what I really like about his life and what he did is, through everything he's been through, he had the courage. By the way, if you haven't seen the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a great movie. It's phenomenal. I remember I actually watched that movie in London. Particularly, like, I planned this trip for a reason. I went to London, I went to Freddie Mercury's house, I went to a local museum, I went to the theater to watch Bohemian Rhapsody. So, that's great. Absolutely. As Aaron says, I won't be a rock star. I will be a legend. Oh, is that your... Oh, that was his comment? That was like his comment or something? What do you mean by this, Aaron? I won't be a rock star, I will be a legend. Was that like a comment he made? Sorry, lost me there. So let me know. So I kind of planned this whole trip, went to London, went to Freddie Mercury's house, went to the museum and watched Bohemian Rhapsody in London. It was like a special trip. I organized this special trip because of how much Freddie and his example meant to me. It was his acts of courage, his acts of confidence. I mean, he wasn't like, he just went from where he was at, learning, he did what he loved, learning music, studying music, and then he just took that step with that confidence. And the confidence that I'm sharing is that he exuded is perfectly exemplified inside of Bohemian Rhapsody. So make a comment on that. And then the music is legendary. Like, I remember growing up, there was the movie The Mighty Ducks. I don't know if everybody remembers that. Am I dating myself here? The movie The Mighty Ducks, they had the We Will Rock You song. That was the first time I heard Queen was in that movie. And I didn't know who Queen was, but I loved that song. I heard that song and I would sing it all the time. Little did I know that was Queen, right? And so I just fell in love with it. But the most part that I loved about the music of Queen was probably We Are the Champions. And yeah, I understand it's like, today it's a sports song and it's highly regarded and used in sports on a regular basis. However, I look at that as a life song, literally as a life song. It's a song that I think that should be, that is played for life, for your own personal life, because it not only we are the champions, I use that for me and my team, but also I am a champion. I am the champion. And it's having that belief and focus that we've talked about in previous episodes, that you have to start believing differently. You have to think differently about your life for it to change. You can't expect to get a different result if you don't change your life, so that's really important. And you have to, I keep saying you have to, you can do whatever you want, but in order to break free, as Freddie would say, right? I want to break free, right? In order to do that, you have to start acting and being different. And it doesn't mean like being fake in any way. But it means that you have to start becoming a different person, the person that you want to become. And sometimes that can feel uncomfortable. Stepping into your future self, stepping into the person you want to be, in the beginning can feel uncomfortable. And you might think like, oh, who's watching me? Like, are people going to notice I'm different? What are my friends or family going to think? But you know what? At the end of the day, they're still going to love you and accept you for who you are. So just keep moving forward, right? So that's one of the biggest reasons why I love Freddie. Unfortunately, I was never able to experience his presence or see him live, but through his music, he still leaves an impact on my life, and that's a really cool thing. So, and Freddie's a great guy. So next, I'm doing this though. If someone knows how to change slides a different way. Next is Jim Rohn, my late mentor. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but I did have the opportunity to not only be coached by him, but also as a close mentor, and help me lay the foundation to who this guy Nathan Amaral is. And the next few people that I'm going to mention to you probably have one of the most major impacts on my life. And Jim Rohn was a mentor to a mentor to a mentor, right? And he, I think one of the reasons why I look up to him, because this guy was just, grew up on a farm, basically. He went from nothing to something. He was in direct sales, but not so much from his business. Like, I admire his business and stuff and what he did. But actually, I just admire the philosophy and the way he broke things down for people. He made it easy. He made it simple and easy. And sometimes I feel like the biggest lessons I learned, and the reason why I look up to Jim is because sometimes I feel like you can overcomplicate things. or sometimes the way I break things down. It's something I'm learning to do and get better at. But what I learned from Jim is that he just makes it easy and bite-sized pieces for people. And that is something I've taken away and worked on even myself in developing that skill, because it's something that I think we all need to work on at the end of the day, especially when we're trying to communicate a message, or communicate with our spouse or a significant other, family or friend. And so Jim, in regards to life, one of the things I admire most about him is that at his age, he didn't stop. He didn't like, I'm done. I'm 65 or 72 and I'm done, right? That was something I really looked up to, because it showed me perspective about retirement. And I had some big shifts years ago about retirement. I used to believe that, you go to school, get a good job, and then you work, and then you have your golden years. You go travel later on in life. You go travel in your 60s and your 70s. And I will tell you something real quick, though. I'm going to tell you something that's important that I learned. I'll never forget this. I was on a trip with my dad and my mom, and it was the group of people were a bit older. Okay, it was an older crowd, so everybody was pretty much like older and retired. And one thing I'll never forget, mind you, I think I was like 19 or 20 years old, maybe between 19 and 21. I don't know the exact dates, but I was in my early 20s. And I'll never forget this, because the majority of the people on this trip were older and retired. I think my dad, mom, and myself were probably the youngest people on this trip. But I'll never forget, I saw an older woman and an older man. They weren't together, they were separate, but they were just, one was holding what do you call those? A walker, yeah. And another one was in a wheelchair. And there's the majority of the people were older. And I remember looking at these people and saying to myself, why are they traveling now? Right? In my mind, when I saw that woman with a walker, I knew that woman couldn't experience the belfries in Germany. Right? I knew she couldn't experience that. I knew some of because you have to climb a clock tower. That's not an easy feat. And then I saw the gentleman, and I'm thinking, man, that man couldn't go down into the Colosseum in Italy, right? So these were thoughts I was having, and I said to myself, I do not want to wait to travel. I don't want to wait. I was putting those things off, and I was like, I don't want to wait to travel. I don't want to wait to explore the world. I don't want that. I want that now in my life. I want it while I'm young. And later on, when it's, or if I make it, there to that age, then I'd rather be settled. I'd rather be like, okay, I've seen the world. Go, my children, right? I don't have to be in that position where I'm the one in the walker, right? It just, to me, it didn't make sense. And I know that's because of the education system is the way it's, ingrained into people many years ago. Today with the internet, it's growing and changing and things are becoming a little different. However, back then and growing up in that was the way. And I know a lot of people are still in that. Actually, the cruise boats that come in here, the majority of those people are a lot older. So I just have this younger approach that, listen, I want to travel now. Like, I want to live that life now. And I made some big shifts in my life at that younger age. I said, you know what? Not only am I going to work smarter, but I'm going to start working on who I am. So one of the biggest quotes Jim gave me, he said, if you work hard at your job, you'll earn a living. But when you work harder on yourself, you'll earn a fortune. That was like the best quote that I've ever heard anyone say. And I literally went from working those 3 jobs or 2 jobs that you probably heard me talk about yesterday. And I went from working on myself, developing my mind so that I could now build a business and I could work on things. I could solve bigger problems. And those bigger problems came with bigger checks, bigger bank wires, whatever you want to call it, right? So that is what he taught me most, was that. And it's been the most powerful thing that I've ever learned. It really is, because when you learn and discover how to work on yourself instead of your job, then you will earn a fortune a lot faster. It's the most powerful thing I've ever heard. So with much gratitude, I was able to, be with Jim Rohn in his life. I'm not like Freddie or, unfortunately. But I remember at his funeral, I had another, if you guys remember this from a few episodes ago, I was sharing some of my biggest breakthroughs that I had even at his funeral. Even I took my buddy Dave Seymour with me to the funeral. And even while I was at his funeral, my buddy Dave is like giving me major breakthroughs in life and just saying, no, that's a whole nother story for another time. Definitely someone to highlight. But even at his funeral, I was learning some powerful things. So Jim Rohn is a real class act for sure. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's see who the next person is. Tony Robbins. You can't live without him. The man who changed my life, and it would never be the same again because of Tony. I'm just going to take a quick break. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to come right back. 1 second. Okay, thanks for waiting. So, Tony Robbins, gosh, this is a tough one. Not a tough one, but because it's just deep and, yeah. Biggest breakthrough I've ever had in my life, the biggest thing that was ever holding me back was when I was 18 years old. I had the opportunity to attend one of Tony Robbins' events, and I walked across fire on the first night. That was probably one of my biggest breakthroughs ever in life. And it was after that moment that I realized that I could do anything. Not only was I motivated, but my mind changed and my spirit changed. And I had a breakthrough that I said, you know what? If I can walk across fire, I can do anything. And soon after that, a few months later maybe, I went skydiving. And then I started doing all these other things like eating fire professionally for my audiences when I was speaking. So I started doing all these things that would push the envelope, zip lining, anything that would like physically push my mind and my body to a new level of thinking. And even though a lot of that was physical, it was actually helping my mind condition myself to say, you know what? I can do this. I can break through. I can do whatever it is I want to do. Like if I've walked across fire, if I've jumped out of a perfectly good airplane, then I can do this also, right? It's kind of like that. What is a client, or what is a rejected offer? What is a rejected offer? What is a seller that says no? What is a client that is says, hey, now's not a good time, right? What is an objection? It's nothing when you have learned how to master your emotions. And Tony Robbins, I looked up to not only in business, but in life. And let's start off with business. Tony Robbins, I truly believe Tony Robbins created the coaching industry, because before that, there was no coaches in the world. I mean, let's put it this way, in the world. What I'm getting at is, before Tony Robbins, there was psychologists. And people, when they had, mental issues or, self-doubt and fear and anything mental, they would go see a psychologist. And it was, a licensed professional where people would go. And you know what Tony did? He challenged the psychologist. That's literally what he did. He took the thing the mold, and he broke the mold. He said, you know what? That's how he actually became famous, was because he went on the radio all over the country saying how he could give people really breakthroughs that it would take them years or multiple sessions with a psychologist, and he could do it in one sitting with someone. And that was his light. That was his spotlight for many years. And then years after that, he started not only creating coaching programs out of his business, but so many people started coaching people after that, because he started encouraging people to get coaches. And Tony Robbins he's been doing this for over 30 years. He's spoken to millions and millions of people. And he has built such a business that I remember after the second time I walked across fire, I think I was in my early 20s. I wanted to just be like Tony. Like, that was it. I was like, this is all I want to do. And I had already done some real estate deals, and I was already like, I think I was already past in the mortgage business and stuff like that. But I was just like, I want to start a consulting company. I want to help people. I want to speak on massive stages, and all this stuff. So, and I did that. I started my consulting company. I started speaking in large audiences, not as many as him. I mean, that guy can fill a stadium, which is impressive. And he just has a machine. When it comes to business, there's a model, there's a sales machine process to get that many people in a conference. No other person, no other guru, okay, in any industry has done that before by themselves in their own organization. To get 10,000 people, 20,000 people in a stadium just to come to your event, that's very impressive. There's definitely a model there, and I think a lot of people admire that and they try to model it, but it takes a real class act. It takes someone who's true and genuine to do that, and that's Tony. That's Tony. When it comes to life, one of the biggest things I've admired about Tony and I looked up to is his commitment. His commitment to anything he sets his mind to. When he sets his mind to something, he literally goes and does it. And he just says, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. There's no second guessing. He's committed to himself, committed to his family, committed to his business, and I love that. He's taught me how to change not only my physiology when things are not going well, but he's also impacted me on mastering emotions, how to manage them. A lot of people, when they watch Tony or hear about Tony Robbins, they only get surface level. They get that surface level maybe from a motivational video they see on YouTube, or they've seen him on maybe Shallow Hal, or they've seen him on news reports and stuff like that, and they get this surface level Tony. But when you get to his events, you understand that Tony is not even a motivational speaker. It's not even about that. And most people say, why would I go spend 4 or 5 days with this guy who's a motivational speaker? I don't need that much motivation. Well, the reality is, if you're saying you don't need that much motivation, you probably do. You need motivation every day. You need motivation as often as you take a shower because your mind gets dirty that quickly. More than that is, Tony is, I say, a psychologist. Not only a philosopher from, like Jim Rohn, but he's a psychologist. He's a doctor of the mind, and he teaches you how to alter your mind to help you get your desired outcome. And that's a really powerful thing. And actually, Tony Robbins worked for Jim Rohn. He worked for his organization. He went to one of his seminars and he learned from him and learned how to become who he is. It was a great stepping stone. He worked for his organization, helped him build his company, and a lot of what he learned at Jim Rohn's company, he applied into his business, into his life. And so that was a very powerful thing. That's how he was able to launch that. But one of the things, like I said earlier, Tony Robbins for many years was trying to, I think, hit an audience that on a massive scale that got shut down many times. He actually came out with a series. An episode series, a TV series that it launched on NBC that they canceled it. They didn't even show all the other episodes because there wasn't enough viewers. And so NBC canceled the show. It was the saddest thing. I was so excited. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Tony's actually going to get noticed to the mass population. Because prior to that, Tony was really only known as the late night guy on TV, the motivational speaker selling, his tapes and books on TV at night on an infomercial. He had a very powerful infomercial. And that did amazingly well. But other than that, people just really didn't know him outside of that, not to the masses. And so when his show got canceled by NBC, it was just, I remember getting the email, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, really? Come on. We were just like so excited. I remember I was at a launch party. We were in a restaurant. We closed down the restaurant, and there was a bunch of us just watching the first episode on NBC. what was it, Florida, but what part of, was it St. Pete? Maybe it was St. Pete, Florida. I can't really remember what part of Florida it was. We're in this entire restaurant watching it on NBC and just cheering it on and stuff. However, I think it was like the next, I think maybe like 2 weeks later or something like that, we literally got an email from the Tony Robbins team, and it was, hey guys, huge disappointment, NBC's canceling the show. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, after all that work, when is this message going to get out? You know, it was like that. And thank God for Oprah. Like I said earlier, Oprah really helped Tony. She opened the door. She actually took his series and broadcasted it. She played it on the OWN network, and she played every episode on the OWN network. And she actually brought Tony in. That's when she launched her own masterclass, and she brought Tony in on a more regular basis. And she didn't do that until she experienced the UPW event, the Unleash the Power Within. And that's the same events that I've been to. I've been to 3 of those. I've been to a few others, but those were the ones where I walked across fire. And if you go to YouTube, you can actually see Oprah walking on fire. I can't show you here because I'd get copyright striked and all that, but you can go check it out on YouTube, and you can see Oprah walking across fire. That was a very similar experience, except there was a little bit bright lights. But anyway, but that experience is exactly what I've done 3 times. And after Oprah did that, and actually I think Oprah was only going to go for a day. She was only going for a day, and she stood the entire event. And after that experience, and after what she discovered who Tony was, she brought Tony in, played the series, and it's been fantastic. And Tony has a great movie on Netflix called I Am Not Your Guru. And that movie was the first time that Tony really let everything go publicly. Like, literally, you could actually see what took place at his events. You could actually see the tonality that he would use. You could see the verbiage he would use. It's an explicit movie. Tony uses explicitives in his conversations for pattern interrupts, and he teaches people how to use them also in life. There's a whole psychology around it, and I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but let me tell you, I could go on and on about Tony and his training and what I've learned and how it's impacted my life. The most important thing I could tell you is go check him out on a deeper level and get ingrained into it, and let's talk about it. I'd love to. By the way, if you're watching this and or you're catching the replay, I'd love to know if you've been into any of Tony Robbins events, or if you've gone through his material, because I love to connect with other Robbins members. You know. So all right, so let's go to the last one, the most important one out of all, my favorite one, most favorite. Yeah, that's my dad. Do we look alike? Do we look alike, guys? Do we look alike? Yeah. Lastly is my dad. My dad is, even though he's number 5, I left to save the best for last. But if I was to rearrange this, it'd probably be my number 1, right? So, yeah. So my dad is probably the best guy that I look up to, not only in life and in business. So I'll start off in business, and then we'll wrap it up with life. So in business, my dad, being an immigrant over to the United States. Actually from here, immigrated from here to the United States, and what he's done in his life, you know, working literally from a farmer here to a farmer there in the United States, and what he did to build up his life and his business. One of the most powerful things I learned from my dad in business is work ethic. Work ethic like nobody's business. I don't know anybody else that can work harder than my dad. My dad will outwork anyone that I ever known, and that's really one of the biggest things I learned about my dad in business. Commitment to his word, commitment to his actions, his organization skills, I think most importantly, because I could go on and on, I could write out a whole list of all the things in business that he's done that made an impact on me, but I'd have to say just his work ethic. I can literally tell you, I knew my dad would wake up every morning at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. My dad and I would wake up together because I would be, waking up to deliver the newspapers. He'd be waking up to go to his bakery, right? And we would see each other in the morning, and either, would say, hey, all right, see you later, And And sometimes my dad would drop me off at the, it depends. There was a few times, but my dad would drop me off at the newspaper place, because they used to drop newspapers in front of my house, but they got lazy, cut costs, so we had to go pick it up at the place. But my dad would drop me off, and so we wake up together at the same time, because I had that work ethic as well. And so he would wake up, and then every night he'd typically be home by 5 o'clock. So we already knew, it was like ingrained in our head that dinner was at 5. Like, it was like, oh, your dad's home, we're gonna eat, right? It was constantly like that. And that was probably, and a big props to my mom for, you know, creating that environment where we would eat together, right? And we did have that family time, and that was a really powerful thing. So it's something that I even have carried over into my family. And yeah, you know, my kids are still young, but we try to make that happen. Sometimes you got one climbing up on the table, right? But in regards to life, one of the most powerful things I've seen for my dad is he's been committed to his faith, and he's been committed to his family. And those are two most valuable things, because without those two things, you can't build a good business. Or you can build a business, but it'd be like short-lived, because everything starts around faith and family. Those are the two most important things. And so when it comes to his faith, like, it was, oh man, I can think of all the Sundays that I delayed because I was like slicking back my hair, trying to look good, right? And my dad would be like, let's go, right? And I was always the one like stalling, right? Let's go, yeah, I'm coming, you know? And so he was always committed to his faith, and even on Sundays, we were definitely committed as a family. We'd visit my relatives, whether it was my grandparents or cousins and aunts and uncles and all that. So that was one thing. And another thing in life about, well, that was faith, you know, but another thing in regards to faith, another thing I always remember is how he was just committed to reading his scriptures. And that's something like I even share it with, you know, with my family and my wife. I'm always like, you know, that's something I always want to get more committed to, because I can even in my mind, if I see my dad sitting down, he probably has scriptures in his hand, right? So that was another really valuable thing. In regards to family, my dad has always had a dream. I can tell it's like coursing through my veins, the travel bug. It's like right here. If you ever wonder why I travel so much and why I'm addicted to travel and why I don't want to sit and settle, it's just blame my dad. Because he loves travel as much as I do. We're very nostalgic. We love checking back on our photos and our videos. And I think I've taken the photos and the videos to a whole nother level. If you guys remember this, I think a few episodes ago, I was telling you my dad had like one of those big cameras, right? And he still has it. He has one of these big cameras. And even for me today, I love film. I love video and cinematography and creating those moments with my family so that in the future they can look back on it. And so that is like literally coursing through these veins right here. And it's something that I've probably done on a whole nother level. Like, you know, my dad, you know, one of the funny things is that my dad, you know, has travel, but he always goes back, right? He always goes back. For me, it's like I've taken it to a whole nother level where wherever I travel the most, I want to live there. So I'll live there for a period of time and then and move on. So I'm really looking forward to the future, because that travel bug is definitely coursing through my veins. And being in COVID makes it very unique, because it's like I'm getting the itch that I need to go travel, right? It's like it's time to go. So those are my top 5 people that I look up to in life and in business. And I would love to hear any of yours. If you have any, if you're watching this in the replay, that's fine too. You can post it in the comments below and share that with me. That'd be great. But that's it. Those are my top 5.
Hey guys, this is Sarah. So I was outside cleaning my truck. Yes, I still clean my truck. Lo and behold, FedEx comes, and guess what's inside? Let's see here. Oh yeah, my first check, you guys. Can you see that? $34,000.
Nathan, you came through. So how many times have you called the attorneys?
At least 3 to 5.
Yeah. times per day to make sure that we got this thing done. So if you are looking for transactional funding for any deal, he will hold your hand, he will work with you, he will work with the closing agent to get the deal done. Cannot recommend him highly enough. Thanks, Nathan. Bye.
You can do this. I believe in you. You can do this. I believe in you. Just do it. Just do it.
I am a fearless millionaire.
Now, Nathan, in addition to being a great friend of mine, Nathan is a tremendous speaker. He has great presence. He provides tremendous value. And if you're thinking about having him speak at your event, don't think anymore. Just book him. He is that good. He's a great friend of mine, great guy. I know him and love him to death. And if you want to add value to your seminar attendees, then book Nathan Amaral. You'll be glad you did.
I know what this is because it's directly from the title company. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Can you see that? Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to do. I'm excited. Hey, let's make this deposit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. Once you have located your seat, we ask you that you please step out of the aisle so the passengers behind you can pass you. This will expedite our boarding process.
Right now, hello, bye-bye. Thank you.
Jangan